So President Trump is now eyeing a former energy lobbyist to become the new Interior Department's secretary. Now, this is David Bernhardt, and he is basically a former oil lobbyist, and he's also actually serving as the agency's deputy secretary. So he's already been basically running the Interior Department after Ryan Zinke had left, thanks to all of Zinke's scandals of wasting taxpayer money. Now, Bernhardt, according to an article here, whose past clients, this is an article in The Hill, include oil companies and others with business before the Interior Department, will lead the agency that oversees about 500 million acres, as well as the energy production on that land. Oh, so great. Here we have somebody who worked for the oil companies as a lobbyist, now in charge of the land that these oil companies will extract energy from. Here we go again, right? Now, that department has about 70,000 employees in various agencies and oversees federal land, offshore drilling, endangered species, and American Indian affairs, among other duties. As deputy secretary, Bernhardt, a native of Colorado, worked hand in hand with Zinke on his oil and gas leasing agenda and took the lead on many others, including the administration's push to drill in the Arctic. This is the ANWR, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and the rollback of a number of Endangered Species Act regulations. You guys know the Endangered Species Act. It's there to protect species that we have put in danger through our, exploitive, like mining, logging, all that stuff, where we gather natural resources. We have put these animals in danger of extinction. Bernhardt says, I don't care. I don't give a crap about that. We need to extract more resources. We need to make more money. And by we, I mean people who represent the oil companies, because that's who he worked for. And now that he's in the Trump government, and that he is very, very likely, now that the Republicans control the Senate, to be appointed to that position permanently. And what's different from him and Zinke is, even though that they have the same policy positions, he's just far less openly corrupt. He's actually still corrupt, but in the way of, well, the natural Washington corruption, meaning he takes money from corporations, and he's going to end up working for those corporations, both while in office, doing their bidding, and now, once he leaves office, he will also go back to lobbying on behalf of those corporations and get tons of money, giant checks. So now, going back to the Endangered Species Act, he said, quote, that the ESA is an unnecessary regulatory burden. And he has proposed a rule change that would make it easier to delist an endangered species and would withdraw a policy that offered the same protections for threatened species as for endangered species, unless otherwise specified. Now, his previous clients included Eni Petroleum, Sempra Energy, Halliburton. You guys recognize that from Dick Cheney, Target Energy, Noble Energy, and the Westlands Water District, which apparently has nothing to do with actually water. And he had worked at the lobbying firm Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck LLP. Now, he says he has recused himself under the ethics standards for anything that actually involved his former clients. Nonetheless, this guy should not be in that position. I know, of course, Donald Trump would never actually appoint anybody who isn't dirty with oil money or coal money. I mean, look at the EPA administrator, also a former coal lobbyist who worked for Murray Energy. So no matter who or basically no matter who is picked, there's going to be somebody in the industry that actually doesn't care about the environment. And that's what's so disastrous about having somebody like Donald Trump running the government. Nonetheless, there were some critics, environmentalist groups, that chimed in. They said, and this is Jennifer Rucala, executive director of the Center for Western Priorities, they said David Bernhardt's nomination is an affront to America's parks and public lands. As an oil and gas lobbyist, Bernhardt pushed to open vast swaths of public lands for drilling and mining. As deputy secretary, he was behind some of the worst policy decisions of Secretary Zinke's sad tenure, including stripping protections for imperiled wildlife. Now, you want to see who's supportive of Bernhardt? Giant energy corporations. For example, you had Mike Sommers, president of the American Petroleum Institute, telling reporters, quote, "We have always been supportive of acting Secretary Bernhardt. We supported his nomination and would support him if the president decides to nominate him to be secretary." They also say that his agenda on fossil fuels would be in the same vein as Zinke, and so therefore they would be in favor of it. They said, like a CEO and a COO, he has been intimately involved in designing the details of these policies and putting them in place throughout the bureaucracy. So he is more than capable. Oh, he's so experienced at selling out to corporations. Look, I don't think, for somebody who is supposed to be Interior Secretary, I think it should be disqualifying that if you're a CEO or COO. Because that's not what the job should be about. It should actually be about managing these lands in a responsible way. And this is what we're not getting from Republicans. This is not what we're getting from the Trump administration. And yes, this is not what we're getting also from corporate Democrats. We need to actually have progressives who, and look, I don't even care if they have what their ideology is to an extent. And I know you say, wait a minute, that's crazy. Ideology matters. No, what matters is that they take their job seriously at protecting the wildlife, right? Protecting these areas and actually make good policy decisions. So that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that whoever gets in that position actually does a good job at doing what the position is supposed to do. And it's not helping corporations. It's actually helping the environment and making sure that we are responsible stewards of the interior. Now, look, does that involve dealing with companies and making sure that they can extract resources that are necessary? Sure. But also making sure that they do that in a responsible way that doesn't poison or destroy the environment, and to put regulations and rules protecting both the environment and business so that both, in a way, can somewhat coexist. At least that's the way that it's supposed to be. Right now, we're not doing that. Corporations massively run, all the agencies at this point, and don't care what they destroy, what they ruin, and what species they kill. So we've got to get this Trump government out. We've got 12 years to do massive change on climate change before climate change gets worse. And we cannot abide anybody in these positions that doesn't actually support something like a Green New Deal and support protecting the environment. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.